Hello everybody, it's me, Weep here, back with part 2, finally, for the long-awaited part of What If Naruto Was in ReZero. Let's get right into it. If you guys are excited and want more of this series to come, make sure to hit the like button, comment down below what you thought of the video, and subscribe to the channel for more. And here we go. Naruto is sitting inside the carriage, as he, as well as Emilia, have now finally arrived to Roswell's mansion. As Naruto arrives, he looks out at the humongous house and the field surrounding it, as he had actually looked down at Arlem Village, which he and Emilia had actually driven through before. Emilia was looking out the windows sadly as she sees the children as well as the other adults outside working and playing together. As Naruto asks what's wrong, he would then remember what it was like for him when he was a child, as he then is quiet, realizing that she must have had something similar to happen to her. Emilia would look up at Naruto and tell her it's alright, and that they'll be meeting the master of this domain soon. His name is Roswell L. Mathers, and he's actually the backer for her in this upcoming selection. Selection? Naruto would ask, with him not knowing exactly what she was talking about. Emilia would then explain that she's actually part of the royal selection. With Naruto still being confused, she would go into more detail, laughing, and telling him that basically the king of Lagunica, the person who ran everything in this entire country, had already passed away, as well as the rest of his family from some pandemic that had hit the castle. Well, and so now 5 people have been chosen to represent the next candidacy for the new king of Lagunica. And she just happens to be one of those people. In fact, the same type of insignia that she had, which she had been trying to get back, that Naruto had helped her with, was actually something that was required you need to have in order to be able to be eligible to rule the kingdom. Naruto would be shocked as he asked if she really lost something that allows her to be basically the Hokage. She asks what that is, with Naruto explaining about the Leaf Village and how the Hokage treat everyone like family and was the leader of the whole village. She would say it's similar to that, as she smiles, asking Naruto if that's what he wanted to be. Naruto would pump his fist into the air as he says that he's going to become the greatest Hokage ever someday. Emilia would giggle as Naruto makes a strange pose while saying this. Naruto would tell her that she doesn't have to laugh at him, as Emilia and him finally arrive. As they step out of the carriage, we then see Rem and Ram. The 2 maid sisters stand there waiting to eagerly welcome back Emilia, with her explaining the situation with Naruto coming with her. This boy's the one who helped me, actually, when I was looking for my insignia back at the capital. It had actually been stolen by a thief, and luckily he'd been there to help me. Oh, we thank you, sir, they would say in unison, as Ram and Ram would say that, before Naruto would ask what their names are. Ram and Ram would introduce themselves, saying that they're the maids that work here for Lord Roswell in his mansion. Naruto would greet them as he goes out to shake their hand, with the 2 of them responding. Ram and Rem would comment on his clothing, just like they would on Subaru's in the original, saying that it seemed very odd. Naruto would laugh, saying that actually he thought that all of their outfits were weird, with Naruto then being taken by Emilia into the mansion. Naruto would at first ask if there was any food, as we hear a loud grumble as his tongue sticks out with drool going over his face. Ram and Rem would look at each other with a look of worry, as they then go into the kitchen to prepare something to eat for their guest. The 2 maid demon sisters were unprepared for the terror that was Naruto, though, as Roswell's kitchen would prepare to be devastated by the 9-tailed fox's stomach. As Naruto would chow down to the food, all of them would be terrified, especially Emilia, watching in horror, as Naruto devours plate after plate, every meal after meal, taking more and more food inside of him until eventually he would burp, saying that the food was delicious, as the entire table is empty, with Ram and Rem staring with absolute shock as they're quaking, asking Emilia who this kid is, as they look at this guy who's just sitting there, staring up at the ceiling, breathing out happily. This is Naruto, the one who saved me, Emilia would say questioningly, as if though not even believing it herself. Naruto would burp as he says, "Excuse me," then asking if there's anywhere he can go lay down for a bit. Naruto would lay down in the same room that Subaru would have been given, as he lays on the bed looking at the ceiling, thinking that it reminds him of his own blank ceiling at home. Roswell would arrive home, with Ram coming up to tell him that their master of the mansion has arrived. Naruto would come down to greet Roswell for the first time and would laugh, not realizing that Roswell was actually the owner of the mansion, with him making a comment saying that he sure dresses eccentrically, with Roswell laughing in the signature tone of his, saying that he himself would also be a rather odd commodity on the streets. Naruto would sit at the large table with Roswell, his two maids, and Amelia there, along with Puck. Puck would punch Naruto in the side of the face with his furry small paws. Naruto pets Puck on the head. Naruto would then tell Puck that he will pet him more later, which makes Puck happy. This is when Roswell would thank Naruto for everything he had done, as Naruto would learn more about the royal selection, what's going on in Lagunica, as well as where he is more so, as well as how more rich and powerful Amelia is than he would have thought originally. That's incredible, Naruto to be thinking, as he calculates everything in his head, being kind of dumbfounded by what he's learning. Roswell would then tell him that his favor that he had done for the Amelia faction had been incredibly helpful, and that if he had anything that he can provide for him, then he'll let him do so. Naruto, who doesn't really have anywhere to go, would ask if he could live at the mansion for at least for a while, as he wants to train more, as he doesn't know if the Akatsuki are here or can find him, but he has to avoid them. The Akatsuki? This is what Roswell would ask, as Naruto would begin to explain that there's a group of very powerful people after him, or more so after what he has. Roswell would be piqued in interest by this, but Naruto really wouldn't go into more details. He explains that it's not really good news, but he doesn't know if they'll be able to find him here, as he doesn't even know where he is to begin with. Naruto would then explain that he basically just wants to stay there to train, which would make him a freeloader. Roswell would laugh. He says that shouldn't be too difficult, with Rem and Ram looking horrified, as Roswell doesn't realize his paycheck for the food bill will begin to rise. As Naruto would then thank him very much, telling him that it shouldn't be there too long, as he'll probably try and find his way back to Konoha fairly soon. Naruto would begin training the very next day, with him waking up in the morning with the two maid sisters already greeting him. Naruto would spend the first day of the 4 from the original, where Subaru would have been working with Ram and Rem as a butler, training in the garden, as Amelia would come out to see Naruto doing push-ups on a single finger up and down. Wow, she would think, as she hasn't ever seen someone work so intense on physical training. Naruto would suddenly create a shadow clone as he begins to spar with it. What's that, she would think, as she remembers that Naruto has these other strange abilities that he can use. Naruto continues sparring with his shadow clone, as we see Roswell watching from his upper window. Very interesting, he'd be thinking, as he saw the hand seal that Naruto had used. His movements, his style of fighting, it's all extremely similar to that of what we know from the area in our world known as Karagi, he would say. However, I've researched far and low, and I haven't heard of anything about this place called Konoha, or what he called the village hidden in the leaves. Naruto had spent all day training as he goes inside, eating as he lays down. Naruto wouldn't be too interested in reading or learning how to read or write in this world, as he wasn't good at that already in his own world, so I don't think he'd be too eager to learn more about that here. Though Ram and Rem would try to help him a bit so he wouldn't be completely illegible with everything, otherwise it'd be almost impossible for him to do anything once he left. Naruto would continue training for another day, when this would be the day that Ram and Rem would have to go and get supplies from the village. This is when Rem would be the one to go and get spices from the village and Rem would go just like she would have in the original. Later that day, something would happen. Naruto would be outside training as he feels himself sweating, realizing that his chakra drain in this world is much less for some reason. Suddenly he would hear screaming, as he would look up, wondering what's going on. Naruto would jump up onto the windows. He attaches his feet to the wall using chakra, jumping through the window and asking what happened, with his eyes full of shock. This is where we see Ram crying, as Naruto's eyes be open wide as he watches Rem on the bed, dead. As he looks down to see Rem and Ram, with Ram crying, she would ask what he did. Naruto would be shocked as she would accuse him of doing this. I didn't do anything. What happened to Rem? As Amelia would ask Naruto if he knows anything about what could have happened. Naruto, who would have been busy all day, would answer honestly as he usually would, saying he has no idea what the heck happened. This would make Ram go into a rage, as Beatrice and Roswell wouldn't try to defend him in this version. Naruto could quite easily dodge all of Ram's attacks, as her sporadic magic isn't very hard for him to deal with. Naruto would jump from the back of the window down to the ground, as Ram was prepared to follow him in pursuit. Naruto would tell her honestly that he didn't do anything to Rem, and that he would never do anything to any of them. Naruto would realize that something must be going on, as he then would continue putting the pieces together in his mind, as he recalls what had happened the first day when Elsa had stabbed him and he had come back. This is the first time Naruto would realize that he actually has the ability to return by death. A major difference in this version, though, is that Kurama is with Naruto, and inside his body he also is reset, meaning that Kurama also has memories for return by death, so he knows what's going on and is laughing crazily inside as he watches Naruto confused by this. Naruto would then eventually be pushed over to the area where the cliff is, where Subaru would be in the original. This is when Naruto would have to decide on a hard choice. He could test this ability that he figured out that he has based off of his own intuition, which he would inevitably end up doing, as he doesn't want Rem to be dead. And Naruto, as we already know, would do anything for his friends. Naruto would sacrifice himself as he jumps off the cliff, closing his eyes as he then would wake up in the bed where he had been the few days earlier. With this time him not jumping up and being as eager as he had in the original, Naruto would greet Ram and Rem, who are now both alive. I have to find out what happened to Rem, he would think, as Naruto won't be as fazed by being killed as Subaru would. Although being killed is painful, Naruto, in the original Naruto, is already very brutal. Naruto's dealt with a lot of pain already, and death as a shinobi isn't very unexpected. So I think return by death would suit Naruto much better, as well for him to be able to use it efficiently would be better as well. Naruto in this version wouldn't ask to be a freeloader, as he asked to help at the mansion so he can watch Rem and Ram work. This would cause more suspicion, however, as Naruto, unlike Subaru, is very skilled with a knife, being a kunai user, and having to make food for himself since he was younger. Naruto would help in the kitchen, which he'd be rather skilled at. However, his sewing skills and cleaning skills would be very dismal at best, with Naruto having almost no affinity for it. Naruto would watch what Rem and Ram are doing, and would eventually get a slight hang on it, with Roswell asking about the progress report, with Ram saying that he's basically totally useless in everything besides cooking. Naruto would then be sent along with Rem to go out to the village that day. With Naruto not being as much of a simp as Amelia as Subaru was, Naruto wouldn't be desperate to try and get a date with Amelia, as he would say goodbye to Amelia, who would actually like Naruto more than she would have liked Subaru in the original, with her waving goodbye to him to take care as he leaves. Naruto would go off with Rem and ask what they're going out shopping for, with Rem being very despondent and saying that they're just going out for spices. Naruto and Rem would go out as they would eventually get there. Naruto would see the village kids and be friendly with them, as Naruto is fairly friendly to children in the original Naruto anyway. Naruto would befriend the kids that are there, as he would then greet some of the other people who live in the village and become more friendly with them. Naruto would get bit by the kid's dog that they have been trying to show him, as Naruto still has the reek of the witch, as well as Kurama inside him, which gives him an evil amount of chakra basically surrounding his body inside of him. Naruto would get bit by the dog that the kids had shown him, as he throws his hand away, telling him that hurt a little. As the dog growls at him, Naruto would pat it on the head, saying no problem, as Rem would giggle as Naruto tells her to stop laughing at him. Naruto would walk back, helping carry the spices back home, as he would then go to bed for that night. Naruto would wake up, as suddenly he feels a screaming pain. What's happening? Naruto would think, as Naruto feels physical pain as his strength begins to leave his body. Naruto would fall to the ground as all of his chakras draining from him. What's going on? He would think, as all of his chakras leaving his body. I need help! As Naruto was fading from the curse that's been placed on him, suddenly Kurama's chakra would activate. I don't feel like going through that again, Kurama would think, as Kurama would use his own chakra to overpower the curse. Suddenly, burning flames of chakra would surround Naruto's body, as the curse is dispelled by Kurama's sheer power. Red flames of a cloak of the 9 tails, of 2 tails it took to dispel the curse, would completely cover Naruto, as Naruto would then look up, looking down as the Kyuubi's mark is growing red. What happened? He would look, as he looks at his hand where he sees the bite up from the dog from earlier, glowing black. I should show Beatrice this, he thinks, as he had run into Beatrice the other day, with her being fairly annoyed by his loudmouth attitude. However, she seemed to know a lot about the stuff in this world. Naruto, now completely healed from Kurama's chakra, would rush out of his room as he rushes towards the door where he feels that the forbidden library is. He'd barge in with Betty still being there, awake, and as Beatrice would ask, I suppose I should ask what you want. with Naruto then telling her that this weird black ink thing was surrounding his hand as he shows her the black phase that was coming from Naruto's hand. She would tell him that he's been cursed, actually, with Naruto being shocked, asking what that means. With her explaining about shamans as well as curses from the northern regions, Naruto's hand would be cured, as this small curse is very easily to take away from using her power. The next day would arrive without any sign of danger. However, Naruto would then realize something. If he got bit by that dog in the village, where the bite had come from, where that curse or something was, that means that dog must have been the one to put the curse on him. Naruto began to sweat as he would realize what's happening. The kids. The village. He'd realize that the dog, as well as some other beasts, might be even trying to attack the kids that were living in the village. Naruto would then spare no time as he tells Rem and Ram that the village is probably in danger, with Naruto having to rush out. Before Naruto would have done this, though, that around earlier that morning, Puck, as well as Naruto and now Amelia, would be doing stretches before Naruto would do his daily training. Naruto would then have his affinity checked for magic. If you guys didn't know, Subaru actually had an affinity for magic in the original, and I don't see why Naruto wouldn't. I think it's very fitting that Naruto would have wind magic as his affinity. When Puck would use his scanning to see Naruto's gate, he would see two very powerful magic deep inside of him. What is this, Puck would think, as he senses Kurama, a beast that might have even more power than himself. Puck would be a bit shaken as he's never found another spirit or something like this that's so strong. However, he would calmly tell Naruto that his affinity is wind magic. However, he also might have a second type, a type of something dark, but it's not exactly... He couldn't explain it, but Puck was trying to explain the darkness that he had felt inside of Naruto, which would be Kurama and his chakra. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. He would hold his hand over his stomach, where he says he doesn't need to worry about that gray old fox. With Puck being now curious, Kurama would growl at Naruto from inside of his seal, as Naruto would laugh. So I can use wind magic, he would think, with Puck nodding, saying that this is a fairly simple spell you can use. Ram would be called over as she can use wind magic too, with Ram being annoyed that Naruto has the same affinity for magic that she does. She would then sigh as she tells Naruto that here's a basic spell that he could probably practice, as she holds her hand out and then would make a slashing motion, with a slice of a wind cutter being sent out as it slices through a tree that's in the yard. Naruto would be instructed to maybe take care of that tree, as Naruto would nod being excited, as he decides he needs to test this immediately. So how do I use this gate thing? Is it like chakra with hand seals, he would think, with Puck explaining to him about the gate. The gate is a thing in your body that's almost like a hole, when you pull an air in like through your lungs and then breathe it back out. However, you need to visualize the mana in your body and let some of it go out of your gate in order to create a spell. Naruto would try to visualize this as he sees the chakra veins in his body, and would then try to find his gate. The gate would be the same marking on his stomach where Kurama would be at, as he then feels it. I can feel it. Naruto would make the same slashing motion with his hand, as he would suddenly then a jet of wind magic would come shooting out as it slices the tree into very fine bits. Wow, you have some incredibly strong magic, Puck would say, as Naruto had cut even further than the tree. Naruto's affinity for wind plus his affinity for wind and chakra nature gives him a 2x bonus for wind magic as well. So Naruto is incredibly powerful with magic compared to Subaru. And just so you guys know, Naruto can also has an affinity with spirits just like Subaru would have. So I think Naruto in ReZero would be kind of stacked. Anyway, back into the story. Naruto later that day would now be rushing towards the village as he has to help save those kids from the demon mob beasts. If you guys want to see part 3 for What If Naruto's in ReZero, make sure to hit the like button, comment down below what you want to see in the future, and subscribe to the channel for more. We'll be getting into more ReZero content, hopefully. I've been enjoying this a lot. I enjoyed writing this part 2. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you guys next time.